Since I've finished testing the Rhode Island with the free-to-play commander William Sims at the helm, I wanted to look at how the ship would perform with a paid commander who can spec into the already quick 22-second reload on these 12 356mm main battery guns. So I've opted to use Takanashi Hoshino as the commander, and there are maybe two choices you could look at if buffing the reload time on Rhode Island is your goal, but I'll show you the Takanashi Hoshino build. We've got Kondo and Sovietsky Rossiya as the two inspirations, and then for the skills selected, it's Flammable Cannoneer in the first row, Dance with Death in the second, Megalomania in the third, Master Mechanic in the fourth, and then Fully Packed as the legendary skill. Takanashi Hoshino is 16-4, so she's fully maxed, and all of these skills are performing at their peak abilities. Now, with this build, the base reload time is reduced from 22 seconds to 19, and it's going to get better as the battle goes on. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I should note two things. Number one, in the fourth module slot for the ship, I'm still using the Artillery Plotting Room mod because it gives you the 10% buff to dispersion. Now, you could say that if speccing into the DPM of the ship is the goal, maybe the Reload mod is a better choice. And that's a fair point. The Reload mod does buff the reload time by 10%, but it also reduces the turret traverse time by 15%. And on this Hoshino build, she has the crisscross skill in the second row, but it's the Dance with Death skill in the second row that I think you want to use over that. Now, what that does is reduce the main battery reload time per 1% HP lost by 0.12%. So the more damage you take, the more DPM you can dish out with not only the main battery, but also the secondary guns and torpedoes if you have them. Of course, Rhode Island does not. And then Megalomania, of course, gives you a 10% reload buff. It also reduces the time it takes for the battleship detectability to go down to normal by 25%, thus one of the good reasons or good arguments for running double concealment inspirations in the first place, although you could opt for something else, maybe some commander that buffs the reload more. And I shouldn't forget that Hoshino's base trait also reduces main battleship battery reload by 3.5%. Now, the other obvious choice is Azurlane Colorado, but Azurlane Colorado does not have the Master Mechanic skill, and the one skill she does have, which really buffs the reload time, is a bit gimmicky, and only buffs it on something like every third salvo. So with a ship like Rhode Island, one that doesn't have great armor, and whose survivability is overall somewhat questionable, I want to take the extra heals that Master Mechanic offers you over really going absurdly into the reload time and not having Master Mechanic. And plus, I think this build offers you as much DPM as you're ever going to need, but you might make different choices than me. Anyway, the turret traverse time, because Hoshino only has crisscross and we're not going to use it, and instead are going to use Dance with Death, which does have the secondary function of actually buffing turret traverse time per 1% HP lost. Since we're using that though, we're opting for the Artillery Plotting Room mod because the Reload mod increases the turret traverse to something like 45 seconds. Now, it will improve as you lose HP because of the Dance with Death skill, but 45 seconds is kind of unwieldy in a battleship that requires so much maneuvering. This is almost like more of a ultra-heavy mega radar cruiser than it is a battleship. You could say it's like a battle cruiser as well. I don't know what term you want to use, but in order to play it optimally, I think it involves a lot of repositioning, a lot of turning, a lot of traversing the turrets, and if you're having to wait for your turrets to traverse to the target, then you're missing out on whatever DPM the reload mod might give you. Now, you could, opt for inspirations like Kedrov to buff the reload time, but I did have a thought after this battle was over, because I was thinking about this problem. Hoshino might have a built-in solution for the legendary row, namely running with scissors. It reduces turret traverse time on the battleship by 1.6 degrees per second, also gives a 10% rudder shift buff for what that's worth. And the trade off for that is a 3% nerf to the dispersion. So I don't know if that would be a good idea to use. I think I'm going to test that a little later as time goes on, but of course I've got other ships to look at. I just enjoy playing Rhode Island, which is why I'm bringing this video to you today. But yeah, running with scissors over fully packed. Fully packed does give you an extra charge of the radar, in addition to allowing you to have 6 heals with Master Mechanic, but 5 heals is certainly enough. So running with scissors is an interesting choice, and then the special effect on that skill buffs the HE and AP damage by 15% if an enemy ship is within 8 kilometers of you. And maybe you're not going to be within 8 kilometers of an enemy ship all the time, but in Rhode Island, with its utility through the radar, there are going to be some cases where you'll be close enough to a destroyer. Speaking of which, notice how our detectability goes down to normal and we're still spotted. Good indication that the gearing might have been in radar range, and what do you know? There he is. Now, he's not within 8 kilometers of us, but if he was just a little bit closer and we were using running with scissors, that HE might have done a little bit more damage to him. Although he does go dark, he gets out of the radar range, he smokes up, but he shoots and gets spotted again, maybe by one of the friendly destroyers. It's only for a moment, but it's long enough that we can get another salvo sent out his way and do a little bit more damage. Now there's a Yamato in front of us, and the enemy Rhode Island, who we were giving broadside to for quite a long time. Bit of a mistake, a little bit of greed there to get shots on the Alaska, but it turned out all right. We're still at pretty good HP. Rhode Island, for his part, is not. This is not necessarily the kind of ship you want to push headfirst into a flank when there's a lot of people on that flank who are able to focus you. And we're going to need to focus Rhode Island to get the threat of AP from our broadside away from this part of the map, and then hopefully we'll be able to go take on Yamato. As you can see, the damage from the HE on these shells is pretty good, and we've already lit 6 fires. Primarily, we're going to be HE spamming. There's a lot of players out there who don't like that kind of thing on a battleship, but when you have the 356mm guns like this, and you're shooting at things that the guns are not easily going to be penning at steep angles, the HE is an excellent choice, and it makes short work of things. Rhode Island, on the other team, for his part, shoots AP at us. We're being risky here with giving this much broadside. He does a lot of damage, but then again, taking damage with this build because of the Dance with Death skill, it's not that bad of a thing since it buffs the DPM even more. I'm not exactly sure what we're at now, but there's Yamato, so let's see. Yeah, the reload time is something like 18, maybe 17 seconds. It might not have been as extreme as I was indicating earlier on. But here, we're in a bit of a tricky situation as far as this battle goes. The enemy team has managed to flip 2 of the 3 caps, and the ship count is almost relatively even, but we're down 1 ship compared to the enemy. They've lost 3, we've lost 4. So we're going to have to do a little bit of work to turn the tide here. And as I said in a video a long time ago, I think about the Colbert maybe, DPM solves all problems in this game. HE spamming at Yamatos, they really stand no chance. There are people out there who will tell you that Rhode Island is a terrible ship because it's got no armor and it's got tiny guns. Yamato is a hard counter to it. There's nothing you can do to Yamato. Well, that's incorrect. These people are just not imagining things. They don't have that vivid of an imagination, I should say. If you're far away from the Yamatos like we are here, and far away in relative terms, we're relatively close to the caps, which are sort of the main area of the game where you want to affect the battle. If you're far enough away, you've got other teammates around that they can shoot at. Even if you don't, you can mitigate the damage at these kind of distances. It's easy enough to burn Yamatos down, especially because most Yamato players like to play in only a north-south direction, where they aim their bows at you and they go forward and backwards. That kind of maneuvering makes it very easy to get the HE on target, and we've already taken down 1 of these 2 Yamatos with some fires. By the way, we're at 13 fires lit right now. This Yamato's burning from the 13th, and he goes down as our second kill of the game. There's Elbing there. We can just barely lob these shells over that island and take advantage of the spotting to deal 3,300 to him and get the Confederate medal to go along with the high caliber. We're about to go over 200,000 damage done, and with the DPM against those two Yamatos there, we've turned the tide, at least in terms of the kill count. Now the enemy team only has 3 ships left alive versus our, 5. The big problem with that is 2 of them are battleships, and we just lost another ship as soon as I said that. The last known location of one of the battleships is in the direction that we're looking, and if you look at the minimap now, you'll see that the other battleship is spotted south of the Charlie cap. So if we get spotted here, we're actually going to be in a bit of a crossfire between that battleship near Charlie and the one in Alpha. Not ideal, and we do get spotted by the Gearing, our old friend who comes around the corner for some YOLO torps against that cruiser. He's successful in the YOLO torping, but of course the Rhode Island does have secondaries. Doesn't look like any are hitting, actually. Maybe the main battery guns? Well, no. We get a fist. That's okay. 4 fists, 2 kills, but there we are, falling victim to our own positioning in the crossfire between Montana and Musashi. Not great. What I decided to do was we need to turn bow in toward the Montana. Musashi already shot. We get a little bit lucky that he misses there. 14th fire of the game lit on Montana, who seems to have promptly DCP'd. Looks like our reload time with this much HP lost is, I think, 17 seconds. That's approaching heavy cruiser levels. Doesn't Otago have something like a 17-second reload? Maybe. Anyway, there is our 3rd kill of the game against the Montana. 18,000 HP left, but we go dark. Musashi is, for the moment, out of our main battery gun range, so he's not able to maintain vision on us. And he is the last ship left alive in this battle. Now, of course, we did play this thing passively for pretty much the entirety of the battle, and we spent most of it spamming the HE. There are, of course, good reasons to use the AP on Rhode Island. It does have improved pen angles, and it's absolutely lethal against cruisers. It's also nothing to scoff at against battleship broadsides, especially at closer ranges. But the HE and the fires at lights, especially when you can spec into the reload as heavily as this, well, it's a DPM machine, and we're over 200,000 damage just from spamming HE. Now, that might not be your cup of tea in terms of battleship play. A lot of people like the ability to get those big knockout alpha punches with the AP, and they don't so much prefer the HE spamming playstyle. But if you don't care one way or another, then this build on this ship is kind of cracked. And I don't think we've even unlocked the full damage dealing potential in this battle. I think we've only scratched the surface. Musashi's got a little bit more HP to take, and he's got a choice of who does he shoot at, either me or the incomparable in front of me. He opts for me. Maybe he can't even see the incomparable. Perhaps that's somebody who specs into concealment. Wow, that is terrible dispersion from that roll of the dice there. Maybe that's an argument against not using running with scissors to make the dispersion worse. I don't know, but in any case, Rhode Island is, I think, a ship you can play around with. You obviously don't have to follow my blueprint here for the build. You don't need to maybe spec into concealment as much as I have. You could say you don't care about the nerf to speed or the extra heals that, Takanashi Hoshino, the nerf to speed that gyrating drill bits gives you, and the extra heals that Hoshino does. So you could opt for Colorado and the reload mod instead of artillery plotting room, and probably get this reload time down into the low teens. I would suspect if anybody's looked at doing that, it's probably PG Rapids. But for me, this build is excellent. 221,000 damage done, 3,000 base XP, 3 kills, and 5 fists for the helping hand. Rhode Island is a DPM machine. I really like this ship. I think it's fantastic. And I'm going to still fiddle around with the build as time goes on. Maybe I'll just go all in on the reload. Let me know if you'd want to see something like that on the YouTube channel. I don't want to exhaust you with non-stop coverage on the Rhode Island. I just find it really fun to play. So give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.